Now, something happened in the December 24 AAA exam that I've never experienced in all of my years of teaching AAA. And that's that lots of my students came out of the exam and said they thought it was all right. They thought it was a fair set of questions. Nothing particularly weird happened. They weren't particularly stretched for time, and they felt they had a really good attempt. They feel confident that they've passed. That never happens. Normally, even my super strong students say, oof, that wasn't good. There was something odd that happened. I ran out of time here. But that didn't seem to happen in December 24. It was a fair set of questions, according to my students. So hopefully that means we're going to see amazing pass rates. Normally my pass rates are well above the global average, but I'm hoping this time they're going to be even higher than normal. And we might even see the overall global pass rate going up a bit for AAA. So that's how hard the exam was. I thought, well, from what I'm told by my students, a very fair set of questions. Now, the caveat for me there is that is based on my students, and so I don't know everything, and I haven't seen the exam paper. But overall, my impression is it was a pretty decent set of questions. So, my tips. Now, I'm marking my own homework a little bit here, which is always dangerous, but I am fair and try to be objective. My tips this time were decent. In the past, they've been amazing. I've basically tipped virtually everything that comes up in the exam. This time, not quite as good. Now, I release exam tips because lots of students ask me for them, and I do a really detailed set of tips and guidance for those that are on my course. For the wider market, and I put on LinkedIn and on YouTube, I have a kind of smaller version. But across those, I tipped a lot of the things that came up. More than half of the topics that came up in the exam, I tipped. But some of them, the things that I did heavily tip to come up, like reporting to those charged with governance, didn't come up at all this time. I don't know what's going to come up in the exam. I just have a gut feel, and I also track what comes up each time. Reporting with those charged with governance, I do think it's coming next time, if you are watching this whilst preparing for the March 25 exam. Now, as always, the exam was split into 3 questions. The first question in section A for 50 marks. And as per usual, there were 2 variants of the section A question, 2 variants of the 50-mark case study question. First one was about a water company, Neptune it was called. And this one seemed very standard and mainstream to me. It had the new style ROMS question, where you were told why the reservoir stuff is a ROM, a risk of material misstatement. Can you justify why? And can you suggest some procedures around it? Standard business risks in part A, standard ROMs in part B, and apparently plenty to go at for 12 marks. After you bagged the 3 materiality marks, that means you only need 3 more ROMs to get up to the full number of marks available. And there was an audit implications question in part D. That's something that I tipped for the students on my course, and I built into one of my mock exams because I did think it was going to come up this time, audit implications. So I was really pleased to see that happen. Now, the other variant in section A, this was a waste management company called Kipper. Now, this one was an old style ROMS question. They didn't tell you what the ROMs were in advance. They just gave you, they said, identify the significant ROMs and evaluate them and prioritize them. There were 17 marks for that. Now, I was told by some of my students, it didn't feel like there was enough to go at here. There wasn't enough in the scenario to go at for 17 marks. And they felt that actually that was challenging to get up to the number of points required. Now that happens, right? Sometimes one of the questions feels or can feel more difficult than the other. But I know that the way that they grade the exams and the way they mark it and all that the 2 questions would have been of equivalent difficulty in section A. So try not to feel hard done to if you did get this one that some students said was more difficult. Now this one had procedures around goodwill, standard type of procedures question. And then in part D, it had the challenges and benefits of joint audits, a current issues type question. Now you can prepare for current issues by memorizing all the technical articles, or you could just rely on your exam technique skills and use some of the ideas that are in the scenario to help you to come up with points for your answer. That's the approach that I go for. Now into section B, there are always 2 section B questions. One of them focuses on reporting, and the other one focuses on something that isn't reporting. And both of them are for 25 marks. Now, the reporting one, first of all. Now, there were 3 variants of this. The first one, matters and evidence, had a financial reporting emphasis. And so you had to comment on the matters to consider and the evidence that should be on file. Lots of financial reporting, which we're seeing a lot of in the AAA exam now. And only 4 marks for the impact on the audit report. Such a massive syllabus area, audit reporting, and only 4 marks for it. Doesn't feel right to me, but that's what they're doing a lot now. And then the second variant was audit quality, assessing the quality of the planning and performance of the audit for 16 marks. Very scenario based. If you know what you're doing, those sort of questions are fantastic. And we did those on both of my mock exams. So I was really happy. My students would have been super well prepared for that question because it was in both my mocks. And then again, only 4 marks on the audit report. Into the third reporting question. Now this one was all about data analytics. Ethical challenges around data analytics, then critically evaluating an audit report for 8 marks. That's a much more sensible number of marks for me, given how big reporting is as a part of the syllabus, and challenges around data analytics as well. Now this one, current issue, data analytics. And we saw in the section A, there was current issues stuff around joint audits. The examining team seem to be doing a bit more of examining the technical articles these days with AAA. So good takeaway for you if you are using this to prepare for a future AAA exam sitting is make sure you're all over the technical articles because they are getting tested more heavily these days. Into the third question, the non-reporting section B question. According to my students, there are only 2 variants here. I may have missed one. There could have been a third. If you did get a different one, that didn't come to me from my students. But anyway, the first of the non-reporting questions was all about a legal case and non-compliance with laws and regulations and ethical challenges around that. I love it when ethics comes up for this amount of marks. I feel like it's a relatively straightforward question. If you've got good technique, you're good at using the scenario, good at answering the specific question that's been asked, then that kind of question is a really nice one. And then the second variant was almost like a planning question. Almost like a risk of material misstatement question, because you had to explain why goodwill is a significant matter, a significant risk of misstatement. It's almost like a planning question. Then you had to suggest some audit procedures around goodwill, and there was a related ethics requirement too. I do think this was an easier set of questions based on what my students have told me. Slightly less time pressured, slightly more straightforward, no massive twists. So I am expecting the pass rate overall to be a bit higher than normal. Normally it's 37-38%. I think we might get into the 40s this time. And that would bring AAA more into line with the other strategic professional options papers. But if you don't get through this time, I'm here for you. I specialise in helping people to pass AAA who have been struggling to get through. And I get amazing results. It's a really personalised approach. Me and you together, your hard work and my support will be the right recipe for success next time around. So if you don't get through AAA this time and you want to give yourself the best possible chance of getting through next time, reach out. I'm here for you.